They didn't exceed their quota, yeah.
They didn't exceed their quota, and the second one,
They were never eligible to begin with.
Okay.
And let me answer this real quick, and I'll get back to your question. That's what you see here with these underlines. There are three parts to every if statement, even when you're nesting one inside of another one. Okay, so why were you here? You were here because you were in this if statement. How did you get to this if statement? Because that was true. See? Yeah.
And then how does it make it different with the and, though? The and is just saying.
So the and, this exact same thing with an and, just doesn't give you a differentiation between the reason why someone might end up at zero. Because if you put this and you put in here eligible as one of your things, and sales greater than quota as your other, okay? That's your condition now. Now you do the calculation for zero. You get the same results if these are going to both be zeros. The reason we might would do something like this is if we had wanted to actually specify these differently, like text that said, you were never eligible, or you didn't meet your quota, or you know, that kind of thing. Okay? Because if we were gonna put zeros in both places, then these two things do exactly the same thing.
But you wouldn't know if you were eligible if you looked at the formula chart, or is it?
Here, a person that sees a zero does not know which of these two things was false, or both of them, I mean, they don't know, they don't know. They only know that because it's an and they ended up over here, that one of those wasn't true. You have a question?
Yeah, I have the same question with the second zero. This was, so the first one is the answer to if it was false, then you won't get anything. But the second zero is,
This first zero,
yeah, it's the answer to if it's false.
it's the answer to if this is false.
Yeah,
Yes, it's the answer to if you didn't exceed your quota.
and then the second one?
Is the answer to if this one's false.
Okay,
That's where you see the underlines.
all right.
You know, these are the three parts of this if statement, these are the three parts of this if statement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a lot more people got bonuses on this one than did on the other one. And then the next step, I mean, we're not gonna deliberate over the next step, we're just adding the two bonuses up. So go ahead and just, in column K, just put sum or plus, or I don't care what you do, but we're just adding the two bonus amounts to each other. That's it, that's all. Okay. Finished file will be out, you'll be able to make sure, but you still have to make sure, sorry to get their stuff, but just for, I need like every bit of this board right now. Okay. So let's say I was assigning grades, and if you have 90 plus, there we go, you get an A. If you have an 80 to 89, you get a B. 70 to 79, you get a C. 60, that's weird, 69, you get a D. And 0 to 59, you get an F. Okay, so I got this over here. So those are the grades and how I'm gonna assign it, right? There's a cell somewhere on my worksheet that has your grade in it. So I check this, I need a lot of room. If your grade, wherever that might be, is greater than or equal to 90, I'm gonna give you an A, right? Okay. Then I check to see if what? To assign the Bs.
If your grade is.
Less than or equal to 89?
They're different things. So are you thinking I need to say if it's greater than or equal to 80 and less than 89, essentially?
Less than equal to 89? Or?
Oh, I said less than 90 is how I should have said it. Great. Do you think I should say greater than or equal to 80 and less than 90? I think I should say that. Who thinks it's not necessary for me to say that?
Or if the original one's false, and then, that's about 80.
You don't need to say it if you're gonna nest all of them,
I'm gonna keep nesting them.
so you probably don't need to say.
Right. So when I get here and I ask about your grade, all I have to ask is what?
If it's true or false. If it's below.
No, if it's what? All I have to ask to assign B's is what?
Greater than or equal to 80.
It's greater than or equal to 80. Why don't I have to ask if it's also less than 90?
Because it's already given.
Because you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Remember, if it was greater than 90, you assigned to 8, you're done. You're done. You never got here. Okay? So now I have to ask the question, is it greater than or equal to 80? So I can assign B's. Then if your grade, I'll try to do this quickly, it's greater than or equal to 70, it's a 70, then I'm going to assign C's. I have too much to write here. If grade, this is a continuation of the same cell, is greater than or equal to 60, then I'm going to assign a D, and then what?
Less than or equal to 60.
Then what?
It's less than 60.
And then if it's all that's false, you can put an F.
I can just say, yeah. But I've eliminated everything else, I've assigned everything else, and then I close this parenthesis, this parenthesis, this parenthesis, and that parenthesis. Okay. If I am logical about, okay, well, the words into one, it was just as faster. Okay, if I'm logical about the way that I put it in, as long as I either go top to bottom, bottom to top, okay, I'm more efficient. If I want to be random about it and assign C's and then F's and then A's and then D, okay, well then I'm going to have to put in both ends of the balance in there. But I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to be efficient. I'm either going to go top to bottom or bottom to top, and therefore I'm more efficient. Okay, and then of course the last category is the only thing left at that point. Okay? So I've assigned all the way through it. That's because this stuff is in a range. Okay, there's a range of numbers here. You don't have to have exactly some particular grade. There's a range of numbers, and that's when I want to be efficient one way or the other, okay? Ascending or descending. If I was dealing with something different that wasn't a range, like there's a little piece of paper, there's not really, with an A under your seat, you get $100. B under your seat, you get $50. C, you get 25. Every chair has one. No chair is empty, no chair has more than one. You know, that's it. Each chair has one of these three things. Those are mutually exclusive categories. Now, would I do A and then B and then C? Of course I would, because I'm sort of neurotic like that. But do you have to do it that way? No, because they're mutually exclusive. You can assign the B's, then you can assign the A's, and then the C's or the C's, and then the A's and then the B's. It doesn't matter, because they're mutually exclusive. This isn't. This isn't mutually exclusive. This is in a range, and we need to be organized in that range, okay? This is not. So that makes a difference. But with that said, and I'm telling you to be super organized when you do this, if I was assigning grades like this, and I have pluses and minuses for all of these grades, this is a horrible if statement. Okay, this is already a horrible if statement. I don't actually suggest that you nest if statements more than a couple, maybe 3, because if you needed to do that much of something, this isn't the way you should do it. You really shouldn't be using if statements. Do I think you need to know if statements? Absolutely, okay, absolutely. Would you nest them? Yeah, a couple of them, maybe 3. But that's about the extent of what I would do, because instead, I would use a function called VLOOKUP. And with VLOOKUP, I have to take those grades and put them in a table that will allow me to use this function. Okay, so when I go to make the table that the VLOOKUP is going to use, I have to go in ascending order. And in the first column, put the thing that I'm going to be looking up. I'm going to put a 0. Then I'm gonna, and I don't put the upper bound, I'll show you how that works. 60, 70, 80, 90. In the next column over, F, D, C, E. That's it, that's it. I just make a little 5x2 little array here, that's it. Because here's what Excel does, when it goes to look up your grade, it's going to give you the F if your grade is from 0 up to but not including 60. 59.99999 forever, okay? Then it's gonna give you an F. If your grade was a 75, Excel would be doing this. Is it higher than 0? Yes. Is it higher than 60? Yes. Is it higher than 70? Yes. Is it higher than 80? No. Goes back here. Not higher than, I'm sorry, equal to or higher than. I'm sorry, it should have said equal to or higher than, because this base is in this range. But these go up to 79.99999. And your last one goes to infinity. Okay? There is no upper bound. No upper bound in this. The upper bound to this range is everything short of that, you know? And then it assigns. And in the VLOOKUP, all you have to know, what are you looking up? You know, what was the grade? I guess I should say grade there. Where are you looking that up? So you got to know where the range is that has this right here. And then you'll see in just a minute, it wants to know where the column where the answer is. And then there's another thing that it needs to know, and it has to do, it's an optional thing, we'll talk about it in just a second. It has to do with whether this is a range like this or something else. Let's start with the one that is a range. Alright, so we've got an example here. I want to show you that I have named some ranges in here already that will make our life a little bit simpler. And one of the ranges that I named was this table right here, and I called it unit pricing. Notice I've just got the data in it, and it looks a lot like what I was telling you set up for a VLOOKUP, because that's what it was set up for. We do a thing with our pricing that's a quantity price break kind of model, where somebody orders from 0 up to, but not including 60 cases of our tennis balls, they have to pay the highest price, $2.45 a case. However, if they order 60 up to, but not including 120, they get a little bit of a price break. If they eventually get to where they order 240 cases or more, they get our best deal. Our best deal being $2 a case. Okay. I've named this unit pricing. Here's another table that I've set up that we will work with in a few minutes, and I named it shipping cost. Cost, you'll see when we do it. And here's another table that I named called shipping discount. We'll get to each of those. Well, let's start with the first one. We're gonna fill in for these 6 orders, the rest of this information. Well, the way we figure out what their unit price is by knowing what? How many they order. You know, that we use this table. We know how much they have to pay per unit because once we know how many they order. So that's where the VLOOKUP comes in. Okay, so I use VLOOKUP, and then what am I looking up? The quantity that they ordered. Yeah, which is in D17. The quantity that they ordered. Where am I going to look this up? In my specially made table. I mean, you do have to make this yourself. You have to make a table where you're going to look things up. It's already made for us, but there it is, right there. It's called unit pricing. And then if you're looking at the tooltips, you know, what am I looking up? The quantity. Where's the table array that I'm looking it up? Right here. They call it column index number. Well, what column has my answer? The second column. And if you get confused, look at how it says column index number, because a lot of people want to answer that question by saying column B, because it's in B up here. But they're not asking the Excel column, they're asking the numeric column in the table you're referencing. Okay? And so the table we're referencing, it's the second column. And then, here's the next question that it asks. I kept referring to these things as a range, because I used to call it that a long time ago. Plus, I just think it's more descriptive. But what I've been calling a range, they are referring to as an approximate match. That's as opposed to an exact match. Okay, so you don't have to exactly order 60 cases or 120 or 240. No, you can order 52 and 123 and, you know, so you don't have to order. You can order, what they're referring as approximate, and what I'm saying is, you know, in a range. That's different than if you have to exactly match what's in these cells, which we're gonna do next, but we'll start with this one. The approximate range match one is the default. Remember, when you see something in square brackets, it means you don't have to type it in if you don't want to, but it will use whatever is the default. Well, the default in this case is approximate or true. I think we should get in the habit of typing it in so we don't forget when it's the other one. You know what I'm saying? I just think we should get in the habit of it. Even though if I didn't type it in, it'd be the same, okay? But I just kinda want, in this particular case, I kinda like to get in the habit of doing it. Looking at the quantity, in this table, the answer will be in the second column, you know, in the second column to match that. And it is an approximate range type match. And here was the good thing about me naming the table unit pricing, I don't have to worry about dollar signs, okay? So that was my motivation behind naming these tables. Naming VLOOKUPs and stuff is a really good idea, because the reason you do a VLOOKUP is because you are going to be doing it for like multiple things. And so, super save yourself some, you know, worry about relative and absolute address, and just make sure those tables are named and you're good. Okay, and you can spot check this. You can check it real quick. Yeah, these people that didn't order very much are paying full price, they get the best deal, you know, you see it, you see that it's working, yeah.
I don't understand why you put true at the end. I understood everything else, but the last
Yeah,
one-
so the true and the false thing has to do with, is this data in a range approximate type lookup, or is it an exact match lookup? Which we haven't done yet, but we're about to do next, okay? When it's in that range, you know, like, in other words, they don't have to order 60 cases, they could order 65 cases if they wanted to. That's when we have to say true. And again, true is the default, so if we didn't type it in there, it'd be as if it were in there anyway.
So
True is the
means
default,
that
but
it's
I
not-
want us to get in the habit of doing that, but that's what the true is.
So it just means that it doesn't exactly have to be.
It doesn't have to exactly match, you follow the range. When someone's grade is an 88, that's not one of these numbers, it's in between this number, and therefore they get a B. So, I think it'll make more sense when we do this next one, because the next one's not a true. Okay. Well, let's fill in the total price super fast. The total price is just how many they order, D17, times how much per unit, E17. So the total price is just their quantity times their unit price. That's pretty quick. Fill that column F in. And then we've got column G, the unit shipping. Okay. Here's how we determine how much they get charged per unit of shipping. It has to do with the method they choose to have it ship it to them on. Do they want truck, rail, ship? Customer being that COD, they'll pay for it when it arrives, so when we don't charge them, they just pay when it gets there. Which is it, okay? Well, they told us that here. Okay. So we're doing a VLOOKUP where we are looking up what method did they choose. You would find that in C17. So what method did they choose to have it shipped to them? Where's the table that I've got all set up here? Well, it's right here. Right here. Not picking up those labels at the top. And I had named it already for you, shipping costs. Which column would contain the answer I'm looking for? Column 2. And now, just based on what you know, what type of a lookup is this?
Exact match.
It's exact. There's not something between truck and rail and ship, and if they were, they'd have to be in alphabetical order, but there's not, okay? There are those 4 choices. Those are the only 4 choices they have. It has to match one of those 4. that's an exact match, and that's when we type in, yep, false. So that's what it means, that's the difference, that's the true versus the false. The true being something that would be looked up in the range, and the false something that has to be exactly one of those items, like this one has to be exactly truck, rail, ship, or customer. Okay, in here. Does that make sense now?
Yes.
Okay. So I copy that the rest of the way down. Again, you can also spot check this and see, yeah, they chose rail, 20 cents, they chose COD, customer, so, okay. But let me show you something real quick. What if by accident, your data entry person, instead of saying instead of saying rail, they said train? You don't have that, okay? On an exact match VLOOKUP, there has to be a match for you to get an answer. If there's not a match, you don't get an answer. And so therefore you get this NA, which is telling you, that's not a valid choice, essentially. And we'll learn later there are ways you can put messages with these arrows, if you really wanted to say something like that's not a valid choice. But at the moment, what it's telling you is that there's no answer. There isn't one, so there's anything that matches. Okay, well that's fine, maybe a little more obvious. But remember what I told you before? Just reinforce this point from way back being a week ago. What if your data entry person said rail space? Looks like it ought to match, doesn't match. I wasn't kidding when I said it's no small thing that you need to be aware of the fact that spaces are characters, okay? They affect things we do, not just counts and count blanks, okay? They affect things we do. They affect VLOOKUPs. They affect if statements. They affect anything that you do that tries to match things. And we do a bunch of stuff that tries to match things. A lot of things we do attempt to match. And so we aren't doing it immediately the very first day we get back after the quiz, back in here after the quiz, but the next day we'll be doing some cleanup stuff where we can see some of the things that we can do to clear that up. To fix that situation, because if we're downloading data and it's coming from all kinds of sources, we don't know what the data entry people were doing. And we sometimes don't know, when they accidentally put spaces in they shouldn't put in, that kind of thing. So we'll need to be able to clean that up. Okay. So just to keep filling in the worksheet, the total shipping is going to, of course, use the unit shipping, but it's the quantity in D17 times the unit shipping. So that's pretty straightforward. It's the D17 times G17. So we see how much each one is shipping. Okay. So it turns out you get a little bit of a deal on your shipping the more you order from us. And here's something I didn't really mention when I said VLOOKUP, but VLOOKUP implies that where you're going to look something up is in a vertical table. Well, it doesn't just imply it, it has to have that. What you're gonna go look up has to be in a vertical table, which is so conventional. We most of the time put things in vertical tables, especially if the tables are very big. But on some occasions, you might see a horizontal table. It has to be pretty small, because people don't put big tables horizontally, okay? People put big tables vertically. But, okay, with that said, you had a little bit of small information. It might come to you in a horizontal table, which this one does. So here's this thing like, the more you order, the better your discount is kind of thing. But instead of it being 0, 300, 1,000, okay, it's 0, 300, 1,000 like this. It's in a horizontal table that's telling you, and we actually have 2 different discounts that we use from time to time, okay? It's telling you that if you order, if a customer orders from 0 up to $299.99, they don't get a discount, okay? But if they order from $300 up to $999.99, they may get a 15% discount or 10% discount. That will depend on which one we're using right now, okay? But if there are really a high volume customer that orders $1,000 or more, because remember that goes to infinity, they're gonna get our best discount possible depending on which one we're using right now. So I'm gonna go up here into this title and just throw discount 2 in here, so nobody wonders later, why did we use that? Let's say that in January, we always use shipping discount 2. It's just what we do, okay? So we're using shipping discount 2. All right. So here's the thing though, the data is located in a horizontal table, and that requires that we use HLOOKUP for a horizontal lookup. Will you use this as often as VLOOKUP? Nope, I doubt it, seriously, okay? Because most people put tables in vertical, in a vertical arrangement. But could you ever maybe use it? Sure, it works exactly like a VLOOKUP, so it's not like it's any more difficult. It's just the same thing switched to being horizontal instead of vertical. So it's not like it's a whole bunch of new material you're learning here, it's just, how would this one work? Well, again, you're still gonna, what are you looking up? Well, for us to determine their shipping discount, we look up what the total price of their order is. So we look up F17. Where do we go to look for it? In this table right here. Just happens to be, if you think transpose, instead of it being like this, it's like this, okay? We look it up in this horizontal table right here. And now, instead of it asking me which column is my answer in, it asks me which row is my answer in. And with the information I just gave you, which row is the answer in? 3. And then knowing what you know about true and false, approximate and exact matches, this is what?
True.
True. Which is an approximate. So it's not new, this isn't new stuff, it's just, the thing about either the HLOOKUP or the VLOOKUP is that the place where you're going to look up your data point, the place where you're going to look this up, in a vertical has to be in the first column, in a horizontal has to be in the first row, okay? Beyond that, can there be multiple rows and columns? Yeah, there can be, that's why we have one here, so that you can see that that is a possibility, that you can have more output. That's why it asks you what column the answer's in. If there were only always gonna be 2 columns, it wouldn't have to ask you that question, okay? But the possibility exists that you might have multiple output columns, or in this case, rows. So here's the thing about this one. This customer ordered $480 worth. They fall in this range right here, so under shipping discount 2, their shipping discount's gonna be 10%. And when you hit enter, what you'll notice is this has been formatted for dollars, and it says 10 cents, and here's why. Could I have put an extra column in here? Sure. I could have put an extra column that had the percent, and then the next one would have had a dollar value. But it didn't, okay? It's all in one cell. So I'm gonna take the percent that I just learned from the HLOOKUP, go out to the end of that formula, go up there to the end of the formula bar line, and multiply it now to get the dollar amount. Multiply it by H17, the shipping total. Again, could I have put this in 2 columns? I certainly could have, but it didn't, okay? So the HLOOKUP figures the percent, you then multiply that by the $48 shipping that you find in H17. So you see that their discount is gonna be $4.80, 10% of the $48 shipping. So I'm gonna do one more thing, that I don't care if you do this or not, I really don't, you just have to follow the rest of your logic through, but I would like to see this as a negative number, because what it is a reduction to their total bill. And so I kinda like to see it as a negative number, so listen to this, because you're not gonna see it. When I go away from doing this, you're not gonna be able to see it, it's so tiny, you're not gonna see it. But I'm going up in front of the H and the HLOOKUP, and I'm just putting a negative sign in, that's all I'm doing to turn this into a negative number. Okay. Because I think on a lot of accounting style worksheets, it would look good, or it is maybe the way that you should address this as things that are additions to, reductions from, and I just think that's probably a better idea. If you don't wanna do it, don't do it. It's up to you. So some people ordered enough to get a discount, some didn't. But in the end, the grand total, and there are a multitude of ways you can put this in here, but I'm basically summing, for me, the total price in F-17, the total shipping in H-17, and I'm summing the shipping discount because I chose to make that negative, right? If you chose not to make this negative, then add the first two and subtract this one. You know, I don't care, but it just follow through with the logic that fits your sheet. I chose to make it negative, so therefore I'm summing all of those things. But the end result for this first person should be that the grand total of their bill is $523.20. Okay. Pretty good with this? Again, VLOOKUP's one you're gonna use the most often. But HLOOKUP's essentially the same thing, just using the data position in the horizontal table, that's all. So that is a lookup function where what you were doing was looking up a value and assigning some answer to that, you know, the different costs or the different grades or whatever, but you were looking up a value that you knew. There's another type of function which is essentially looking up for you also, and it's called index. An index is a function that looks up for you the value, let me say it differently, looks up for you the contents of a cell. Tells you what value, tells you what's in that cell. And the way it looks it up is by you telling it the location of the cell. Okay, so you tell it, here's a range of cells, go to a particular location and tell me what's in that cell. That's what index does. So, I'm gonna take you through this in steps. You don't have to do this part, but when you're watching, it'll help you focus on what it is we're working with. So, let's say that we determine people's, shipping cost, and there's one and only one thing that we use to determine that shipping cost, and that's what region are you in. Closer you are, cheaper it is, the further you are, the more expensive it is. That's all. We just use region, that's it. And let's say these people, I'm gonna go over here to H9, let's say this customer is in region 4. Well, I'm gonna put a 4 over here, again, to get out of the habit of